Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to your TraderMerlin show for your Friday edition. No whiskey in hand today. I've got a wicked sore throat and a headache, so we might have to do a shorter show and no drinking for me today. So sorry. I will cheers water to everybody out there, though. Happy Friday, everybody. All right, now I'll just jump right into the damn topic. Let's get going on things. Hopefully some of you enjoyed this nice rally we had today, especially in the crypto space. Some of these things are up 30, 40, 50% for a lot of these cryptos out there. It was pretty impressive. But I still decided to do the graphic, maybe a little bit morbid and gloomy, calling it Friday's dead cat bounce. And I guess we can start off by saying what is a dead cat bounce, for those who don't know. Generally, it's after you have a really sharp decline in price, you get a little bit of a relief rally. And everyone's like, oh, here we go, we're going back up. And it just bounces a little bit. As we all know, a cat's not going to bounce. However, I don't know if this is a dead cat bounce. My gut tells me that it is. I agree. I think I saw a comment in here that says the bounce is not over. I agree. Amino's Algebra says it does not look like the bounce has ended yet. I would tend to agree with you on that. I think it might have another day or two in it. Now let's go to the S&P 500. And there we go. And get rid of some of these lines. I've been drawn all over the place. But there's your S&P. See this huge rip back up after this hammer formation in yesterday's trading. And ending the Friday on a nice note. But still, for the week, it was ugly. I mean, here's the numbers for the week just to put into perspective. This is for the week of May 13th. You had Bitcoin was down 16.74%. You had gold down 3.87%. Russell 2000 down 2.66%. NASDAQ down 2.5%. And what's actually really interesting, if you look at the numbers for the NASDAQ, it was down almost 8% at one point this week. That's pretty crazy. So was the Russell 2000 was down about 7.5%, and finishing only down 2.6%. S&P down only 2.45%. Don't worry, we'll get to something positive in a second. But it's not the Dow. Dow was down 2.1%. And finally, oil up 0.79%. Finishing on a strong note, but I guess it really is a matter of personal preference and how you look at this market. So yesterday, I ran through a whole bunch of this. Big up said this is the longest string of losing days week. Yeah, wouldn't surprise me. I mean, I'm a little, obviously you guys know I'm disappointed because I jumped out as this thing broke above these highs. I got out of some of it. Again, locked in some profit, but didn't give back all of my gains. But I had some huge gains as we were down here right around February 24th. And then, it stopped me out, which is unfortunate. But, man, if I just held, right? Shoulda, coulda, woulda. 3 words, absolutely nothing in the world. Lo and behold, I still have that one position short I told you about in the Russell 2000, which my plan is to close it next Friday. That one's in the green right now. And then I'm actually hoping that this bounces back up. I'd love to see this market get back up to 4,300. You guys notice that this is where we kind of, 2 weeks ago, we had this level drawn out, right? We saw this thing hitting this low. We thought, all right, if it's going to bounce, this is the day we had that big earnings announcement. We're like, the Fed announcement. If it's going to bounce, it's going to come back up to this area right around 4,300. It did literally to the tick. And then also we had a low mapped out, which is here right around 4,000, and it's actually hit both of those. So I would not be surprised to see a little bit of a continuation of this bounce to the upside. Now, does it get all the way up here? I doubt it'll get to 43. I'm just going to be adding some to my position or building a position before that if we get more rally next week. The question is, where do you do it? As you guys noticed, if we go back just to May 5th, there's not a lot of spots here where I would say I see supply zones. So I'm going to just put a line right here, break this down into a smaller time frame, let's say 4 hours. And, the only one that I see that it looks like there was kind of a drop and a base and a drop right here was on the 5th of May, where you had this kind of basing and then it sold off. So maybe we get to 41.30. 41.40, where I start shorting and then add more if we get higher up to 4,300. But the 4,400 looks very attractive to go short. Yeah, it is, but I don't know. You never know. We could get there. I just think that it's a little. I think there's too much fear. I think you can see it in the headlines. You can see it in the price action of the way the markets are moving. Really quick, jolty moves to the downside. The up moves are generally a little bit slower. So pretty aggressive out there. And I think that we are in a downtrend. So my bias is going to be the short side. Apologize if you guys don't agree with me. That's okay. You can go long if you want. Just be careful because these charts, that trend right there, down for the 4 hours. So you go to the daily. It's also down for the daily. So, and aggressive. All right. So let me go into some listener questions here. I'm kind of all over the board today, guys. I didn't really have a lot of time to prep for today's show as I've been laying in bed. But let's go to a question from FK. Now, yesterday we talked a lot about UST, talked a lot about Terra, the Bitcoin situation, which I think is very interesting. You're actually witnessing an absolutely historic event. But the question from KF says, you mentioned that the reason Bitcoin went down yesterday was bad news about UST, but I think that that was not the main issue. The main issue was the S&P 500 that was making it go down. Now, I have to strongly disagree on that one. While I agree with you, KF, that there is a very tight correlation between Bitcoin and the S&P 500, the sequence of events behind the Terra UST and Terra Luna sell-off was forced liquidation of Bitcoin. So you had this group forced to sell Bitcoin on the open market. Plus, that triggers a whole bunch of margin calls. People got leveraged out. So while you're correct that the move is correlated, the markets didn't drop anywhere near as much as Bitcoin. I mean, if you look at the previous month, the month of April, Bitcoin was down about 16%. It's already down 16% this week alone. Right? That's why I put these numbers on here. I just wanted to put it into perspective. I mean, that's a hell of an outlier there when you look at down 16.74%. for Bitcoin. So yes, the overall markets were down, but you know it's still appallingly bad to have a 16% down week. But fortunately, if you actually look at the numbers, I will look at this chart here. So let's go for the week, right? I'll do a weekly candle. Let me bring the chart up for you. And I'll do it on the futures, but here's your week. This is the way I generally do it, guys. I will go from the previous week's close, which is this Friday, and I'll go all the way down to the low here. Bitcoin was down 30% this week. That's 29.44 on futures, right? That is crazy. Now, fortunately, we've regained some of that. You can see over the last 24 hours, it's been a pretty nice move back up off those lows, but still not out of the woods yet. And it feels like we are still seeing a lot of negativity on crypto. Plus, I have to assume, and we know what assuming means, makes an ass out of you and me, but I have to assume that at this point, regulators are now really pushing the issue of cryptocurrencies and digital assets because billions of dollars were lost. So I don't think it was necessarily the S&P that brought this one down. So he says, I literally was watching them for hours side by side, and Bitcoin was falling at almost every tick. Sure, but the pressure was bigger to the downside because you had forced selling. What do you think about that? Do you think Bitcoin follows S&P more than NASDAQ? Yes. I think the S&P is the dog that wags the tail. So in my mind, S&P is the main one that it follows more closely. One more. Exactly which NASDAQ chart do you use? What is ticking 24/7? And basically it is not limited to the active hours only. If I'm looking at that, I'll be looking at NASDAQ futures. The only issue with NASDAQ futures is, you have not quite, there's odd times of the day where they're very liquid and times where they're not. So I don't know if it'll get me continuous here. Let's go like the NASDAQ, for example, and show you 5 minutes. If I throw volume on the bottom, you'll see that there's clearly times of the day where there's no volume. So even though you have trading in this area right here, I'll draw a yellow box around it. You're trading in this area right here, markets are closed. Markets are closed right here, that whole yellow box. So while, yes, it does trade and you can watch the ticks, it's very illiquid. So if you're trying to do anything with volume, you're probably not going to do much there. It's not going to you'll be moving your price or moving the markets with your small little orders. Steph says, Patrick says, Luna was up 97% today. Wow. Well, I actually got my order to go through, so I had a limit order last night on Gemini. I now have 55 million Luna tokens, which will probably go to zero. I don't see this. It was just a pure, I'm just throwing it out there as just a chance. Take a chance. So I now am proud owner of 55 Luna tokens, which let's just for fun show you what happened with Luna. Fun for me, but not for a lot of people. Oh, it's actually delisted. Invalid symbol on Binance, Luna USDT. That is interesting. Let's go see if I can find it on something else. All right, let's try it on Binance. That's weird. So they're not listing Luna against USDT. There it is. You can see on the 5-minute chart, it's just been stuck to zero. But there have been times where it's shot up. So I'm long from 0.00001. So I guess at some point today I could have made a 50% rate of return had I sold, but I'm not. I'm just going to keep this one. Hell, if it gets back to a penny, I'll be worth $500,000. So Luna millionaire, right? Totally fun while it lasted. Yes, Bitfinex. It's, I don't know if I want to call it a rug pull. I wanted to call it a systemic failure of a concept, right? A rug pull, I believe, is where somebody goes in there and says, we're going to create something that we know is fake, that we know is a scam, like Bitfinex. And then they take everything away from you. It's a Ponzi scheme. This one had some Ponzi elements to it, but if you look at the ecosystem of Luna, they were really trying to build out something big here. And unfortunately, somebody found an exploit, which if you understand the mechanics of how these liquidity pools work and how the pegging works for different stablecoins, it doesn't sound like it was that hard to do. And again, I personally think that the group that did this was Circle, Goldman Sachs, and Coinbase. I think that they stand the most to gain from a collapse of a stablecoin because they are a stablecoin, but they're actually fully backed and audited. So they can look at regulators and go, hey, we're okay. We don't want that algorithmic one. Use ours. And I believe that whoever is the standard for stablecoins will be king of crypto. He'll dominate the whole place. Did Luna go bad faster than Shiba? Yeah. Oh, yeah. Heck yeah. Shiba's still there. Shiba's still trading. I mean, if you look at the price of Shiba Inu, it's up 20% today. Here is your daily of Shiba Inu. Now, granted, it's dying, right? But it's still trading. And this one already had, they're pretty much the same price, right? That's pretty sad when Luna's price is the same price as Shiba Inu. Now there's over 1 trillion of them out there. But yeah, this is something we'll be talking about for quite a while. Hey, good day. Have a good weekend, Big Ab. Good to see you. So I'm going to read this question here that came in from Tim because I think it is important. He says, thoughts on Coinbase, please. And I'm glad you asked this because I've been watching Coinbase. I've been wanting to buy Coinbase. I almost bought some yesterday, and I was like, no, I'll just hold off a second here and let the dust settle from all this. You guys noticed he had a huge engulfing pattern yesterday, and then I'll gap up today. There's a lot of factors here. It's trading at a PE of 4 was what they were trading at. So they've got assets. They got money. And they're making money. So I was kind of surprised to see it tank so much. I was really thinking about buying some leaps on this or just some options that are out, maybe some call options that are 120 days out. Going and buying some calls on Coinbase at 125 probably would be okay. You probably get those really cheap. And I think that it probably is going to do rather well going forward once this mess in crypto world is figured out. But I also heard that they were flying out to Omaha, Nebraska to see Warren Buffett. That was interesting. That's a rumor. Who knows if that actually worked. Bull flag on Shiba. Well, I'm not trading. I wouldn't call that a bull flag. Just what? Bull flag? If anything, it's a bear flag. I wouldn't call that a flag at all. If that's a flag, I would just call this the sinking ship. I think earlier we had it on a 5-minute. Maybe that's what you're looking at. I wouldn't see it as a bull flag. If you want me to, I can explain kind of how bull flags work and what they look like, but I don't see one. But that's just me. Let's see. Here's another question, and I'm watching your chat. So if you guys have something you want me specifically to ask, do it with question marks like Margaret just did there. Do you have a downside target for Bitcoin? 10,000. 10,000 is like where I see based off the 4-year cycle. Now, I don't personally believe it's going to get there, but when you look at, let me bring up the Bitcoin chart here for you. I'll do that one. If you look at the longer term, go to a weekly here, 10,000 is the origin when this all started back in 2020. It was this huge thing all started back then. And granted, I could appease Tom and make it logarithmic. It's still the same thing. The last big move started right about there. So that's the next major low point I see. I don't think it'll get there, but according to my charts that I look at with this 4-year cycle piece, that's pretty much the target. I mean, let's go 1 month. And here's logarithmic. I'll just do it. We can do logarithmic. Can't even talk today. We can do logarithmic or we can do regular. Let's just do logarithmic just for fun. And I'm going to create a 4-year window. Here's January to January. Okay, so right there is a 4-year box. So the question is, where do I see this 4-year box starting? How about right here? You guys notice that at the beginning of this 4-year cycle, it sold off for about a year. And then it leveled out and then had a huge run. Okay, so let's go to the next one. That was from 2013 to 2017. Now let me show you from right here. You had from 2017 to 2021, where we had about a year of sell-off, sideways, and then rip up. And now, if we look at where we're at, I would contend that we're somewhere right in here. And I feel like we are looking at another 3, 4, 5, 6 months of market downside move in Bitcoin. And I don't want it to happen, but it could very well happen. And now that you see the logarithmic scale, 10,000 doesn't look so far away, does it? I would love to have a sip of whiskey. Will this strong downtrend cause investors to lose confidence in crypto? No. You know why I don't believe that, Margaret? And I'm sure the weak hands probably will, but let's look at something like, let's just look at a weekly. I just wanted to go back. I'll take it off of logarithmic. What do you think happened here? Right? From 2018 to 2019, I mean, we fell an unbelievable amount in Bitcoin. And people were, freaking out. My portfolio dropped significantly. That was a drawdown of 84%. 84%. I mean, to me, that's, how do people recover from that one? And then you go back here even further. Well, you go back into, let's go to 2000. Here's 2014. 2014, you had a sell-off, late 2013 to 2015, another 86% drop. So this is nothing out of the ordinary, and I would hate to see an 80% drop, but hypothetically, what would an 80% drop in Bitcoin look like? Conveniently, where do you think it lines up? 10,000. Now, look, I'm not saying it's going to get to 10, but history has shown there's been 86% drops multiple times. So to me, it's very possible. And I think when you look at the cycle that we're in, the negativity on crypto, the regulation coming in, I think you could see more downside move in crypto for sure. Sorry to say I don't want Bitcoin. Yeah. Oh, you do want it to drop? Yeah. There's a lot of people that want that. And I have to agree with you. I mean, it sucks because my portfolio, watching these losses, which is just paper gains, right, at this time, it hurts to look at. But I agree with you. My vision for crypto is we're going to see a shakeout right now. I think you're going to see a lot of stable coins go away. You're going to see a lot of protocols go away, but you're going to see a lot of stuff that starts to become the dominant force and integrate more in society. Let it fall. I agree with you. Let it fall. And I'll buy back in. If Bitcoin gets to 10,000, I will be buying quite a bit more. I have a lot of dry powder ready for that, and I have no problem buying some more Bitcoin. And we'll see what other tokens at that point I feel like buying. But, right now, trend's going down. Hello, Heriberto. Fink says, how long do you think it will take before the current bear market hits the real economy? See, we saw it. It's a great question. That's a great question. And again, I'll bring it back to my mentor. What's crashing today? My mentor used to tell him, because I would watch the rate announcements by Alan Greenspan. He'd raise rates or cut rates, whatever, and you're just glued to the screen thinking the market's going to have an immediate impact. Well, it did, right? The equity market, stocks would move very quickly, but in order for it to get down to the end of earnings, meaning it has to go through probably 2 quarters of earnings, right, to actually see how a 50 basis point increase is going to hit the bottom line on earnings, right? Because obviously we saw last week a 50 basis point increase in the Fed funds rate, or 2 weeks ago. 50 basis point increase. We're going to get another one in June. We're going to get another one after that. So that's a 1.5% increase in the Fed funds rate, which means your 10-year's jumping up by that much and everything else is moving up in cost. At a certain point, you're going to start to see earnings impacted because customers might not spend as much. Inflation is still choking out the economy. Now, we have retail sales numbers coming out next week, which are going to be very important. They're expecting a significant decline in retail sales numbers. If retail sales numbers tank, and then you also have all the rising costs for businesses, what do you think is going to happen to their earnings in Q3, Q4 of this year and Q1 and 2 of next year? It's not going to look very pretty. Now, you're hearing more and more about companies lowering their forecasts and citing a weak future, but that's all, for me, pageantry. That's all just talk at this point. My experience tells me it's like 9 to 12 months before you actually see a rate increase, domino effect all the way through to the end. What do you say about Algo? I like Algorand. Silvio Mercalli is one of the smartest guys in the business. Yeah, I'm a big fan of Algorand. But, look at, even though I like Algo, take a peek at the chart. It doesn't look very good. This thing has been just slaughtered. This is a weekly chart that I have here. But we've gone from $2.80 and now it's trading at 45. So it's one of those things that if you liked it at 2, you should love it at 45. Polkadot. Yeah, Polkadot's one I'm really kind of disappointed with. I don't see them being utilized as much as they should be. Their concept is great. Their idea of creating almost like a round table where everybody can communicate together is awesome. But clearly something has shifted. These levels here and these little yellow boxes, these are demand areas where I was buying, especially back here at 24. I bought a whole bunch more. And, I'm staking and earning 12%, 12 to 14% on it. But right now, it's not looking good for Polkadot at all. But I will still hold on to it. It's going to be a long-term play. They are still building out their ecosystem. They're still getting, parachain auctions going on, and there's a lot of money flowing into it. But, granted, everything right now looks really, really, really bad. I mean, here's a good example. A lot of people think that Celsius is going to go under. Or not Celsius, Crypto.com, which makes me a little bit nervous. But look at that chart. I mean, it's just tanking and tanking and tanking. You think fixing password sharing and adding ads to Netflix is going to increase their stock price? Great question. Man, you guys got some good ones today. I think you got to look at Netflix and say, okay, when's enough, right? When is this price chart enough? Where you go, I think it's actually a value play. Now, I didn't ask Colin this the other day. I would like to because I know Colin's looking at the technicals as well as the fundamentals, primarily the fundamentals. But, I mean, this has been one of the most aggressive sell-offs of the big cap stocks that you've ever seen. I mean, it's huge. So I think for anybody who's looking at Netflix, I do believe that change in their business model will have an impact. I think they'll lose some people, right? But, I do think it'll help their bottom line a little bit. You remember you can subscribe to Netflix and get ads, or you can pay a little bit more and get ad-free. And they're also going to try to, remove password sharing, which is just tracking IP addresses. Honestly, I don't know why they haven't done that before. But yes, I think that will probably help them out. It's just I don't know enough about the fundamentals to say this is a good play. Granted, at some point, this is going to be a good buy. I firmly believe that Netflix at some point will be a good buy. Is it down here at 100? Well, it's not that far away, is it? It's pretty damn close. I know. I had to keep that on the screen. The Jim Cramer Netflix buy. Unbelievable. January 3rd, he said to buy that stock, and it's down 70% now. Let me just see so I can see. So right there is when he said to buy it. Yeah, down about 70%. Thank you, Mr. Kramer. May I have another? All right, let me go to the last question here, and I'm going to wrap this up because my head's starting to hurt. Any chance El Salvador defaults on its debt if Bitcoin goes to 10,000? I think so. That's a big one. Obviously, El Salvador just bought another, was it 500 million? They just bought a lot more Bitcoin on the most recent drop. Now, you got to look at who are the biggest holders. Obviously, Elon Musk is a big holder of Bitcoin, but it's MicroStrategy. It's Michael Saylor and MSTR. Right? And their chart has been it's up 19% today, but I mean that is about as ugly as it gets. This thing was up at $900 in November, and now you're trading at $200. 75% decline, roughly 75% decline. So, there's a couple different companies out there that I think have big issues and countries with cryptocurrencies and their exposure. I think Michael Saylor got a little bit too aggressive. However, in the long run, knowing that the average annual rate of return on Bitcoin, including where it's at today, going back the past 10 years, is 139% per year. So, if we catch up to some averages here, we're going to have some pretty big years going forward. But right now, Bitcoin not looking so good. I had a great time. I already went, Mimi. I went last week, or actually went yesterday. When did I go? This is probably where I got this damn cough. I had a presentation. I went Tuesday, stayed Tuesday night, and then came back on Wednesday. I did played a little bit of blackjack. Had a great run. 30 minutes at a blackjack table is all I needed to secure a wonderful time in Las Vegas. I love when I go to Vegas and I come back with considerably more than I went with, and you're like, all right, thank you, Mr. Vegas. Love it. Where's the Rat Pack? Let's talk about interest rates at Trader. Let's talk about interest rates at the Traders Army Summit. I don't think they really matter much. I think interest rates are huge. Interest rates are, in my mind, interest rates and the bond market are the one, it's like the ocean. That is the tide. It's far bigger than the equity markets, right? So if you look at the impacts of markets in general, I would put the currency markets as like the biggest influencer. And then from there, you whittle down, you got the bond market. And then from there, you go way, way, way smaller, and you have the stock market. And a lot of people think that the stock market's the dog that wags the tail. It's not. Bond market's going to be moving that much more powerful. There's way more money in bonds than there is in equities. And then you look at the global currency market. So it'll be very interesting to see. I'm curious, Tom. I won't be there the whole time. I'll probably just show up one night for the cocktail party. Depends on what my schedule is and how I'm feeling. But yeah, I'll probably show up there and get me up there to talk about bonds. And no, there was no recording of my presentation. What I might do, if you guys wanted, I could do my presentation that I gave for Vegas here. Company revenues and costs matter. Correct. But remember, interest rates are impacting costs, are they not? I mean, most companies have some form of debt. And if rising rates choke out the economy, of course, with inflation, then consumers are going to start buying less, which, of course, directly impacts the revenues. If you guys don't want me to, you let me know. I'm fine to do it for you guys. If I have to get OTA's permission because it's actually an OTA presentation. So this is not, my product here is not an online trading academy product. This is TraderMerlin. So I'd have to ask them for permission, but I'm sure they'll be okay. I know, Patrick. Well, I'll ask the powers that be if I can do that presentation for you guys. And then it's about 45 minutes. And it's actually really interesting because it really ties into utilization of digital assets. But I think when you look at the implications for stablecoins going forward, I think that it's really important. I mean, I think it's just the macro picture of cryptos and our global economy from a transaction perspective are significantly impacted by stable coins, and that was part of it. Will the dollar surpass the euro? You mean will they get to parity? It might happen next week, man. Check out the euro. I mean, that's ugly. This is brutal sell-off, and I'll go to a weekly here. We're not that far off. I mean, the way that this thing has been selling off, this is just a couple of weeks away from hitting these lows here. And I could very easily see that happen. So I think that we'll get to parity here in the next couple of weeks. My guess is within 1 month, the euro will be at parity. So you see right now it's at 104. It's going to be at 1 or less. It's going to be a crazy one. The stock market is the dog that barks. True. Yeah. Well, I think algebra, it's an interesting point because we can all look at one component of the market and say, this is the most important piece. But in reality, it might be the most important piece to what you're trading. But you can impact your trading by looking at different instruments and different markets and see what the macro influence will be for yours. So, you mentioned here, if you're trading stocks, great. That might warn us to some changes coming, but we could probably see those changes coming if we focused on the bond market or focused on the currency market. I mean, I've been kind of waving this flag here of the dollar as being very detrimental to the markets. The more that this dollar keeps moving up, the more the multinational corporations are going to start to miss revenues. They're going to miss profits, especially as they try to repatriate their dollars back or their foreign currencies into U.S. dollars because the dollar is gaining so much strength. So this starts to hurt the bottom line, as Tom was pointing out. Bottom line is critical, and right now they're losing money by selling goods abroad and converting that money back into U.S. dollars. Interest rates a very small impact. Never was a factor during my corporate life. 3-person, 9,000 person company. Okay, let's do it. Let's talk. I bought $50 at Luna last night and I made $700. Nice. Well, be careful with that, Kay. If you're playing with fire, you're literally juggling chainsaws with that thing. That is nuts. My guess is that, and I just looking at what's going on, that Luna and UST, which was supposed to be a stablecoin, I kind of feel like they're going to zero. I think I think Luna is probably done. I don't think Luna's going to get back on track. There's just way too many coins now. It's interesting to see it's delisted against Tether, which is odd. And then if you look at UST, here is your stablecoin. It's at 11 cents right now. This is really, really bad for a lot of people. And I feel horrible because, we talked about this in the CIL. You could actually take your UST, move it over to Anchor Protocol and be making, at the time, 19.5%. Now it's about 18. But still, you can make 18%, but it loses 90% of its value. That's a losing deal. So it shouldn't have happened, but unfortunately it did. And there's a lot of people that lost big money in UST. All right, let's see. So we can start calling the euro the way. This is the way. All right, let's see. I didn't see any economic announcements for Monday, or nothing that was really important. So I'm gonna have to just wrap up the show here because my throat, as you can tell, is suffering. We'll have to stick with a 30-minute show for the weekend. My apologies, guys. But my throat is struggling here to maintain the conversation. So I'm going to wrap it up. Let's see, next week, I'm not 100% sure on what my schedule is going to be. I will definitely be heading over at least one of the days to the Traders Army Conference to check that out. So probably one day I won't be doing a show, but if I'm there for multiple days, but I'll let you guys know on Monday. So Monday, I'll let you guys know exactly what the schedule is. If you guys want, send in questions, comments, put them down below the YouTube video. But if you have questions for me directly, send them to TraderMerlin@gmail.com. I hope you guys all have a fantastic weekend. Take a big, deep breath and relax, because I think that the craziness, the volatility, the huge swings, I think they're just getting started. I think we're going to see a lot more of it. So it should be fun. Hope you guys have a fantastic weekend. Send me some messages, and I'll see you guys soon. Take care.